Hello and welcome to the program. I am Suren. As we can recall, we have been speaking of the group soul. Remember, this is a channeled conversation and it's based upon channeled information. Let us talk a little bit more of this intriguing subject. The group of psychic consciousness, the physical body, and the group of an atomic consciousness. Now, the group soul is, as it was said to be, only one and yet many. The informing spirit makes these souls sound like one. And I think we have explained a few issues in this regard before. That as there are certain centers in the brain, so it is within psychic life. There are a number of souls, all bound together by one spirit, depending for their nourishment on that one spirit. Now, he informed us that when he was on earth, says our guest communicator with the interested audience, I belonged to a group soul, but its branches and the spirit, which might be compared to the roots of a tree, were in the invisible. Now, if you would understand the psychic evolution, the group soul must be studied and understood. For instance, it is being explained that many of the difficulties that people will assure you can be removed only by the doctrine of reincarnation. You may think my statement as being frivolous, but the fact that we do appear on earth to be paying for the sins of another life can be, in a certain sense, true. It was, after all, our life, and yet not our life. In other words, a soul belonging to the group of which I may be a part, lived that previous life which built up for me the framework of my earthly life or existence, lived it before I had passed through the gates of birth. In this invisible world, there is infinite variety of conditions. I can only speak of what I know, but invisible only to us on earth. I do not claim to be infallible. Take the following as the axiom I would lay down for you. Many soul men do not seek another earth life, but their spirit manifests itself many times on earth, and it is the bond which holds together a group of souls who, in the ascending order of psychic evolution, act and react upon one another. So, when I talk all about what my spiritual form bears, I do not speak of my physical ancestors. I speak of those soul ancestors who are bound to me by one spirit. There may be contained within that spirit 20 souls, 100 souls, 1,000 souls. The number varies for each man. But what the Buddhists would call the karma I had brought with me from a previous life is very frequently not at all my life, but of the life of the soul that preceded me by many years on earth, and left for me the pattern which probably programmed my life. I too wove a pattern for another of my group during my earthly presence. We are, all of us, distinct, though we are influenced by others of our community on the various planes of being. I will say that when the Buddhist speaks of the cycle of births, of man's continual return to earth, he utters but a half-truth. However, often half-a-truth is more inaccurate, unfortunately, than an entire misstatement. One thing is certain, that I shall not live again on earth. But a new soul, one who will join our group, will shortly enter into the pattern or the karma I have woven for him on earth. No doubt, karma is a word I probably use incorrectly here. It is something more or less than karma that he inherits. I am therefore a kingdom in my own existence, yet I am but a unit in that kingdom. You may say to me that for the soul man, one earth life is not enough. But as we evolve here, we enter into those memories and experiences of other lives that are to be found in the existence of the souls that preceded us and are of our group. I do not say that this liberty theory, which I offer you, can be laid down as a general rule. But undoubtedly, it is true in so far as it is what I have learned and experienced. Now, this speculation, as you would probably call it, is interesting when applied to genius. The souls who have preceded us on earth naturally stamp us mentally and morally. If a certain type of psyche is continually being evolved in the one group, you will find that eventually that type, if it be musical or otherwise, will have a musical or otherwise genius as its representative on earth. It will harvest all the tendencies in those vanished lives. And it will then have the amazing unconscious knowledge that is the property of genius. Here in the after death, we become more and more aware of this group soul as we make progress. Eventually, we enter into it and share the experiences of our brethren. You must understand, therefore, that existence for my soul as separate and apart from my individual ego is dual. I lived two lives, one in the world of form and one subjective, in a community of which I am a member. Hopefully I make some sense. Men and women may not care to accept these statements of mine. They long either for an indestructible individuality in the hereafter, or for a kind of spiritual swoon in the life of God. You will perceive in my analysis of the group soul that we are individuals and members of one whole. And when you come to the fourth, and more particularly to the fifth stage, you will realize how fine and beautiful is this brotherhood within the one being. How it depends and intensifies existence. How it destroys the cold selfishness so necessary to an earth life, where the living creature must continually destroy another manifestation in matter in order to maintain its physical life. That's the way it is. Like eating meat or vegetables. In the fourth stage, the soul becomes aware of the group soul. And through his awareness, there arises a great change. He begins gropingly to realize the character of experience, the possibilities of mind. And in this fourth stage, if he is a soul man, he is peculiarly liable to error. That is to say, once he becomes cognizant of the group soul and of its many emotional and intellectual experiences, he may, if a certain section of that group soul be in a fixed mold, take upon himself its shape and remain with it for eons of time. In this connection, when I explain the mold, I desire to indicate a certain spatial outlook. For instance, fanatical Buddhist or a very devout Christian may be held within the groove of his earthly beliefs. For those other souls in his community are, perhaps, also held in the chains of those particular ideas. So there he may remain, making no progress in a thought or in a memory world, which consists of the Christian or of the Buddhist dream. He is held fast in the tentacles of an octopus. This octopus is the earthly Christian or Buddhist or whatever idea of an afterlife, the view of the universe as created when on earth. Now you will recognize that such conditions tend to inhibit progress, for it means, to use another metaphor, dwelling in an intellectual chrysalis, living in the past earthly conceptions. And it is extremely necessary that the journeying soul should come to a state in which he can at will survey them, but not be held by them, or be imprisoned in their limitations. Spirit man. Well, spirit man is not in this category, or like a living ghost in this wraith of earthly beliefs. The great masters are not thus ensnared. Christ, the assumed Son of God, entered into Hades, but he did not abide in any of the other planes of being. Christ being, inspired directly by God, was connected with no group soul. He passed from Hades out yonder, for his physical body was, during his lifetime on earth, the direct expression of the clay of that essence, the imagination of God. Truly, Christ was a limited expression of the whole, was in earthly life linked to the whole. But every Christian born upon the earth is inspired by some individualized spirit. When I say individualized, I desire to indicate that it is a thought of God. It is not, therefore, the whole. It is not the fount of all life. So there are numerous fanatical believers, Christians, or otherwise those others, including the Jehovah's Witnesses, who, though they led lives of rectitude on earth, committed certain intellectual sins. These might be summed up in the phrase rigidity of thought, an outlook limited by fanaticism. Briefly, they are wedded to a limited concept. In the fourth stage of existence, they must learn how to escape from such a prison, if they are to make further progress. These remarks apply equally to Buddhists, even Muslims, and all those other fanatical adherents, or adherents as well, of various religions, or, as in the modern world, of scientific conceptions. For science tends more and more to become a religion, or a special outlook for many human beings. Now, if the soul is to pass from the fourth to the fifth stage, he must first shake off, cast from him any dogma, any special earthly outlook, which has shaped his mentality, which confines it, so that his vision is limited, and his experiences are, therefore, also limited. Conscious of reality being thus withheld from him. Let us now consider the plane of flame, or the fifth plane. Both into the fifth stage. There comes a time when the soul who dwells on the fourth plane of existence prepares for the incident of death. However, this death does not resemble the death of earthly men. At this particular point in evolution, the soul has perfect and absolute control of form, of his appearance, of his eidolon, or living spirit. This is the last veil between him and a conception of existence without form. He must free himself before he can go up another rung of the ladder. And freedom can only come through the deliberate process called the breaking of the image. It is the farewell to appearance, to form as a necessity, to color, to feeling as a certainty, as a condition of life. Again, the soul enters into unconsciousness, and when he is born into the fifth stage, he has cast from him certain attributes that were his when he still inhabited the image. For his soul was, in part, the shape of light. He has now discarded. Between each plane, there is this lapse into apparent oblivion, stilling of all processes, a great calm. It is called Hades by the ancients. Here the soul seems to pause. Slowly, however, vision returns, and the traveler perceives the imaged upon the glimmering sea of eternity all his experiences on previous planes, all the past images that make up the story of his life has spread before him. He studies them in the light of his unifying principle, or spirit. They rouse according to his nature, his varying desires, intellectual and emotional. He knows then that he must choose either to go forward or backwards. The spirit actually forces the choice. It has to be made according to the fullness of his experiences in the previous life. He has entire free will, but inevitably he chooses his greatest need. When, at the gate of illusion land, the animal man chooses to drop back into a physical existence. When, at the gate of the many-colored world, the soul man sometimes chooses to drop back into the first division of this region, which, and its last divisions, is the apotheosis of form. However, supposing that his review of his previous lives is satisfactory, he will decide to go unto the fifth stage, and then the great calm is broken. There arises a tempest, wherein he discards his desire for existence in etherealized form, in that plane of color. He discards then a certain part of himself, which he will not lose, but resume in the greater wholeness of the sixth stage. The symbol of the fifth stage. It is necessary to describe by some symbol each chapter in the Book of Life. The term flame expresses the fifth stage, for now the soul becomes emotionally whole, aware not alone of himself, but of all those other souls who are in his group. He remains himself, yet is all those other selves as well. He no longer dwells in form, as it is conceived by men, but he dwells still in what might be described as an outline. All the past emotions, passions, intellectual moods of expression belonging to his companion souls shape his outline, an outline of emotional thought, a great fire which stirs and moves this mighty being now. While he abides in this fifth plane, experience is manifold, is a multiplication. Losses, in a sense, its apparent oneness. He lives indeed a life that seems to burn like a flame. It is a time of severe discipline, of vastly increased intellectual feeling, of great limitations, of boundless freedoms, of the glimpsing of infinity, horizons, swoons of contemplation, agonies of dreaming states, in which all lucid thought lies. Follow states in which the intense, feverish activities of all the passionate existence of his comrade souls flame through his being. He is thus all the time becoming more and more merged with the unifying Spirit. A rare intensity of feeling, of joy, of ecstasy, of sorrow, of dark despair nourish him, feed his existence, his life. Yet all the while, he is in a sense apart, aloof. He is not caught in the storm of this emotional whirlpool. He is aware of it, yet rides above it. His attitude, however, does not resemble of that, say, Saint Simeon Stylites, who remained upon his pillar, remote and aloof from the gorgeous, ancient world which was playing out its drama in those Mediterranean lands of his day. The soul on this fifth level of consciousness is continuously conscious. There are now no gaps, no periods of non-existence. He revels in his emotional and intellectual life of all those comrade souls who are on the various rungs of the ladders which reach up to the one Spirit and are lighted by it. By this soul, at the climax of his existence on the plane of flame, is like an artist who lives in his own masterpiece, drives from it in all its features, in the freshness of its evolving, changing creation, that strange exaltation which may perhaps at one rare moment be known to a creative genius, though very faintly, while he still lives upon the earth. This state on the fifth plane may be imagined, but not fully understood, or even conceived by a physical man's mind. The traveling soul the purpose of his existence will seem to be at last revealed. He tastes of heaven, and yet the revelation of the last mystery still tarries, still awaits the completion of the design, or which he is a part. It is a glorious existence, despite certain sinister aspects spoken about. There is nothing like that. The soul man, however, may not leave it for the sixth plane until the group is complete, until those other souls necessary to this design, woven in the tapestry of eternity, have also attained to this level of consciousness. Some may still be far behind, but still in the state of being, the soul man becomes aware of the emotional life of all the more primitive souls, inhabit denser and denser matter, and yet belong to his group. He becomes aware, in short, of all the parts of the great body, which he realizes is spirit. All the unifying principle feeds with its light. He realizes the subconscious or unconscious life of the flower, the insect, the bird, the beast, all those forms which are connected with the governor of his being. That light from above, that's it. The construction of the group soul. This will be an interesting topic. The actual construction of the group soul must be clearly visualized. Its spirit feeds with life and mental light. Certain plants, trees, flowers, birds, insects, fish, beasts, men and women, representatives of living creatures in varying states of evolution. It inspires souls who are in various planes, various levels of consciousness, in the after death. It feeds also creatures on other planets, for the spirit must gather a harvest of experience in every form. Gradually, these intelligences evolve and merge. The experience necessary to the spirit is completed when all the souls necessary to the design have reached the fifth plane. Once they become aware of their oneness and their individuality, they may go forward to the sixth plane. There is then a breaking of the threads, a casting away of the dress of emotional experience, a sifting and changing on the part of all these souls. They pass once more into Hades and review, in that state, all that now lies behind them. With that, and the songs from the birds outside, and the sun shining upon us, I say, keep smiling and be happy until we meet again by the next episode. Thank you for sharing this program.